Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a truly special online event today. It's called Opening to Your Inner Prophetess. Receive guidance from ancient feminine oracles through silence, ceremony, and ancestral memory. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network. And one of the things that I love is to open to oracular guidance, to really become a conduit for a deeper intelligence to move into form. And I am always so blessed to be in the presence of a prophetess, somebody who can channel these oracular gifts for me, for others, for blessing, for healing, for humanity's upliftment. And today we're going to get to explore how to do that with a prophetess, an oracle that I totally love and trust. Her name is Isis Indriya. I've been to Egypt with her. She's taught a number of programs for Shift. She's the founder of the Academy of Oracle Arts. She's the co-founder of Imaginal Community, and she's really devoted herself to the process of becoming a prophetess, an oracle, a vehicle for a deeper intelligence to move into reality in some really creative and novel ways. So we're in for a treat today. And if you're excited to go further, we have a brand new program with Isis called The Lineage of the Prophetess that we'll share more about later in the hour. So Isis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Shift Network. It is always a profound honor to be a part of this current. Thank you.
Mm. Well, I know we wanted to create something of a sacred ritual space for us to all join together in intention and co-creation to really optimize this time together. So do you want to open with a little bit of ritual prayer or blessing?
And with some cedar here that was gifted to me from the Pacific Northwest, and I'm going to start with a prayer. Greetings and gratitudes to the ancestral homelands of this place, Nisanan, Chakamaidu, and the ancestral homelands that are gathered from all over the world through the web. Thank you. And to each and every one of our benevolent, elevated ancestors, our guides, our allies, our holy guardian angels, and our highest councils that have called us here together at this time, and to the holy ones of the east, the south, the west, and the north, sun, moon, star, nations, Mother Earth here, this holy waters of life, these magnificent mountain beings, all the holy elements of creation, the four-legged, the two-legged, swimming ones, standing ones, the flora, the fauna, the fungi, the slithering ones, all the holy elements of creation. Thank you once again. And at this time with the cedar, in this time of our human transition, transformation, and upliftment, on behalf of healing from the past, our ancestral healing at play, and on behalf of communing with a most magnificent, beautiful future, we say thank you to the lineage of the oracles and the seers and the prophetess and the prophetesses and the priests and the priestesses that have been carrying these traditions for millennia, time immemorial, and how it runs through each and every one of our bloodlines too, like that, and how we come together at this time by choice, at this time of prophecy, to commune, restore our memories, and in this way revive, renew, regenerate, and build a society, a future, a community, a village, and all of a new upliftment of humanity at this time, through restoring the memory and employing our senses of these most important faculties that each and every one of us have on behalf of the beauty that we are creating and shaping. In this way, may the cedar be a humble offering into the web of life on behalf of liberation of all beings, creating a beauty way. Anknatadu, 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 blessed be, and so it is.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you for that profound offering. It's really clear when you pray like that just how connected you are to so many dimensions and spirits and ancestors and lineages. And so, in many ways, it feels like the archetype of the oracle or prophetess is about reweaving those connections, that you are being intentional in reaching out to connect with higher forces, energies, gods, goddesses, guides that are here to help. And maybe I would love to start our journey a bit with how you came to that reconnection, because I know when you first were, told your name should be Isis, you didn't really have much context for a lot of what you're doing right now. I'd love for you to take us from that point and into how you were initiated into this remembrance of of your role as an oracle and prophetess.
Well, thank you. To begin, I would love to honor my ancestors, Chamorro, Tsamoru people from Guam, Guahan, Pacific Islands, Micronesia. Growing up there in village life, there's so many stories of the beings that live in the different places around the island or in the oceans or in the cliffs, and also in the trees, the ancestors in the trees. And we were really raised to be in communion with these unseen relationships at a very young age and to respect them. And we were taught at a very young age this idea of inafa maulik, that a way to maintain the harmony between all relations, human more than human, is rooted in respect. So respect was at the heart of our village and our community. And with that, my mom transitioned at a very young age when I was about 4.5. And I would say that my entire life was devoted to finding a way to commune with her. And because she transitioned to the other side at such a young age, I was always finding a way to talk to her in some way. And that led me towards a deep devotion and study to the mystery teachings and the unseen forces at play. So I would say my whole life I was interested. And when I was about 17 years old, I took a breathworks course, and I got in touch with a really profound amount of grief that I had been carrying. It was almost like a depression my entire life. And that level of grief that finally was freed and liberated. And, I still grieve. Grieving feels like it's a part of an oracular practice. But at that point, through that level of grief, all of these faculties and senses that I didn't really know that were stored inside my body and inside my blood and fascia started to come online. And that led me to wanting to study more, like what are these things and how do I strengthen them? And so I found my way to Reiki, first and foremost, through Sai Baba. It's always interesting to notice the path. Through Sai Baba, I found my way to Reiki through Sumiko Chikamoto, and I was around 17, 18, and started training with her. It was like breathworks and Reiki. And at one point in one of my initiations, she was like, when you're out in the world and you start to notice your guides, what are the names and the visions and expressions that you're seeing? And I kept seeing the expression of Isis and even her name. I didn't know who she was. And so I told her eventually, I don't know, there's this being Isis and this name Isis that keeps coming around. And she didn't really know much about her either. And she, at one point in my later initiations, asked if she could initiate me with that name. And I was like, sure, not knowing much. And then pretty soon, my roommate and people just started calling me that as a nickname. And then I found my way to studying with my neighbor who was really deep in transpersonal psychology and stargates and star lineages. I started studying with her because I was seeing so many things in the stars. And she decided to follow her teacher to Kemet, to Egypt. And this is when I was about 19. And so I sold everything to go with her. And I followed her, following her teacher. And so I went to Egypt and I started learning about Isis, Aset. And at that point, people had already been, that was always like my nickname, 3 weeks in deep initiation, and from that point moving forward, all of these things started to come into alignment. And I just started following the thread and diving deep into essentially studying the mystery teachings in any way that I could, through different mystery schools or teachers or books or personal divinatory processes, started training. And I would still say that as a seeker, I'm still doing that. It's part of this work is consistently being in training and learning. And through that journey, there was like a magnetization to what's called the oracle, which is a crystal ball that was handed to 3 of us in 2001. This is quite a bit later. And through this communion with which we call the oracle, the crystal ball, it started magnetizing, or I started magnetizing with it, so many different threads of oracular lineages and traditions. And I just found my way, I found myself in deep study, communion, restoration, and remembrance through so many different pathways. And then I started realizing, wait, this is connected to so many of our bloodlines and so many cultures and traditions that run through each and every one of us. Wait a second, this is actually part of who we are, you know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thanks for following all those lines of wisdom and initiation because I mean, so many of us have been blessed by your gifts now. And let's talk a little bit about some of those other lineages and how this archetype of the prophetess or the oracle is sort of has a much wider lineage of inheritances behind it.
You know, it's really quite fascinating and to consider, you know, through each and every one of our bloodlines, there are beings, people, humans that were known as oracles, seers, mystics, and all the different names and titles that were very much a part of the communion with the natural world, supporting villages, helping to create societies, and also helping to maintain bonds as humans with the living wisdom of the natural world and the cosmic forces at play, the divine. And so we see this all over the world, you know, such as in ancient Egypt, which is probably one of the more well-known ones. There's lineages of oracles and priestesses that in relationship to the temples were in deep devotion to particular divinities or deities. They're called netaru. And through tending to the temple and through ritual and practice and darkness retreats and deep initiatory processes, were making offerings to the cosmic force or the netaru in the temple to build a bridge so that communication and crafting could happen. Those are one of the most popular ones. And of course, the word oracle, we oftentimes relate that to Greece because of the Oracle of Delphi, the Pythia, who was known to be inside of a cave. You know, this is where the womb cave mysteries come online, and sit on a chair that had 3 legs. And under this chair, there was a fissure cracks in the ground, and these gases would arise. And you know, these oracles that would assume the form of the Pythia would be training, you know, their entire life, and people would travel from all over the world to come and ask questions because they are known to be a direct relation with the divine, or a voice, a vehicle and a medium for communication through cosmic forces in the natural world. Now, those are the 2 most popular ones. Now, if we look in Africa as an example, I have a dear sister who's a Sangome priestess. And she, through divinatory work, is a vehicle for ancestral communication, divine communication, and to help humans not only tend to their health, their bodies, their spirits, but also to help tend to the land and strengthen their relationships with the land and the ecosystem, and how to support the revival, the regeneration of the culture. You know, Sangome is another one. Then we have the Volvas of the Norse tradition. They're known to be the staff bearers, and oftentimes the staff is recognized as a pillar between communication of the heavenly realms or the cosmic forces all around the earth, and then also communication with the living life force of the earth, the living wisdom communication. And so the staff is like a conduit, a vehicle for it. And the Volvas were known to be vehicles for communication. They helped communities and families know what offerings to make and how to feed and nourish the holy trees, the world trees, the tree of life, how to feed and nourish the land, how to feed and nourish cosmic forces at play, so that there could be a crafting together, a bonding and a crafting. Then you see this again in India. There's so many different expressions of mediums and mediumship and channel. In Brazil, I mean, we could go on and on and on. And that's the thing. And of course, here in North Native America, in the Americas, on Turtle Island, even in South America, like the Pacos and the Andean cosmology, you know, the magnificent despachos and offerings that are made to help give back to that which gives to us. And this is another big piece about the oracular seer prophetess tradition, is what offerings to make, and how do we feed and how do we nourish, and then in that way, through the mutual feeding, how do we learn how to listen, pay attention, tune in, so we can craft together. And now the prophetess piece, which is such a beautiful word. I love the word prophetess, because inherently in it, there's this relationship with prophet and prophecy. And we're at a time where so many prophecies are talking about right now. And in this terminology of the prophetess, the codex of the prophetess codex, the codex of the prophetess, there's this really beautiful lineage and stream of women that trained, and not just women, but in the term prophetess, women that trained in the lineage of the Marys, the Mirafors, the Magdalene, all the way to Aset, Isis. And they trained to be vehicles for the divine, to play them like instruments. So a part of the rituals are to cleanse and clear the vessel, consistently in relationship to the holy waters of life, because the wisdom of the ages is in the water. To cleanse, clear the vessel, clean the vessel, to be a vehicle and resurrect our divine human nature, to be a vehicle, so that the wisdom of the natural world, the living life force, and the cosmic forces at play could play us like instruments. And so then we become resurrected as an instrument. And so when we're shaping and making in the world, we're crafting by the bonds and the communion of all three working together, rather than just humans deciding everything. And so I feel like we're remembering how to do that again. And through this offering and through this time of the prophecies talking about right now, this is a time of restoring the memory of these faculties and these senses, employing our senses to turn on these other faculties and intelligences. So again, we can be in communion with the sacred and also help craft and shape with the communication of the natural world and the communication of the cosmic forces at play. It's a really powerful moment. And, I feel like this offering, it's different from, it's an offering. And this is also inherent in a lot of these ancient cultures and these root traditions in these ways, is how do we make of offerings? How do we make of our life an offering? How do we become good food that becomes nourishment on behalf of the crafting of all three realms? Communing with the future with deep roots in the past. And so this offering is to do just that, restore our memory, employ our senses, and resurrect the consciousness of offering on behalf of crafting and co-shaping together.
There's so many deep philosophical understandings and sacred wisdom in what you've just shared. And I want to sort of go a little bit deeper into how you're sort of seeing as the establishment of this cycle of offering is really foundational. That it's not a mode of trying to just get information from somewhere, but that when we're establishing a deeper relationship with life and with forces that go beyond the physical level, that actually is the prerequisite to sort of becoming this sort of vehicle for insight, for revelation, for prophetic words that can help and move people. So I want to, just ask you a little bit more about how you do that, the kinds of ritual offerings, the kind of reciprocity that you're creating as in order to serve in this role.
Well, one simple one that we've already done that a lot of us do already, is the offering into the cauldron. Something that's so simple that it's just so useful and helpful is, circled around here, we have a variety of different herbs and resins. And intentionally choosing or communing with what is choosing us. And so in this one will be Osha. And with my own intention, clarifying that this offering is an offering towards the restoration of our vital bodies, to restore vitality in myself and in my consciousness and in relationship to what we're doing here. So that's my intention with this Osha root. So with that, I just speak to that like I just did. And very simply, I like to do 4 for the 4 worlds, offer it into the charcoal, the cauldron, and then witness it and hold space for it to actually transform. And so my word, my intention that goes in, transforms, and then I witness the Osha turn into smoke, and then witness the smoke rise and disappear into the invisible, unseen realms. This simple practice that, I do very regularly, multiple times a day, is a way not only to offer something from my own self, which is my words, my intention, my focus, with a resin or this bark from the natural world to then transform and rise and go into the unseen. This is
So,
daily.
yeah, so you're sort of symbolically in many ways merging with the natural world and in that smoke, so that you're sort of like creating that deeper sense of linkage in order to become like a voice for the larger whole, it sounds like.
Absolutely. And this is a big part too of, the oracular seer prophetess piece, particularly with the lineage of the Sibyls in Italy, is to cleanse, because this is the other thing, it's a vehicle of cleansing. There's the offering, the cleansing, and the blessing. And part of this lineage is to be a vehicle for divine utterance. You see this in a lot of these cultures and traditions, what it means to utter and be a vehicle for utterance, where the power of the word, abracadabra, I create as I speak, is acknowledged as not only a way that creates and shapes reality, but also when we cleanse the vessel, to be a vehicle for what wants to utter through us. And so this simple, very effective offering technology helps to align the heart, mind, body, and spirit, and then cleanse and bless to sit upright in ourselves, in our thrones, our bodies, and be a vehicle for utterance. We become more intentional about what we say and what is speaking through us.
Let's talk a little bit more about the utterance. And so, how do you really start to allow your normal speech patterns, your normal mind to kind of dial down and let something move through you that's coming from a deeper level of awareness, consciousness, other beings, other forces? Just curious, like how you sort of make that shift so that your words become a vehicle for something larger.
One of the most valuable series of practices that I want to share with everybody that has been very useful for me is, even before sitting here right now to have this time together, share this time together, in my interior temple, I close my eyes and I do a series of rituals. And the ones I did were a grounding, calling in of my highest self, and opening up a container, a magic circle. And those three practices that I did before coming in, before opening up this field together, helped me center myself and align my interior side so that I could be a vehicle to allow what wants to come through to come through. That's first. It's like we call them the preparatory rituals. And then I start with the preparatory rituals, and then I drop into a field of absolute silence and communion with the silence, which in a lot of these traditions is referenced as the great mystery. Because the only thing that is certain is that we know, the only thing that we actually know that is certain is that we're going to die, and we don't know when it's going to happen. So everything else is really a communion with uncertainty, with the great mystery. And so after I do those preparatory rituals, I sit and I just hold silence and I drop in. And part of it is like I sit up. I like to sit up in my body so that my spine is resurrected. And in this way, there's a feeling of presence fully here. And one of the things I was taught when I go into silence is I'm communing with the great mystery, the great unknown. I'll sit in silence with eyes fully closed. And then there'll be a point where I'll roll the eyes back and then slightly open under here. So then I become present in a meditative state with the field that I'm in. And then once that is activated, then it opens up a gateway for utterance. These are like some of the simple practices that I do for moments like this.
Super helpful to understand what you're doing as preparatory ritual and opening. I want to ask about the codex, and there's a notion of this codex is very central, the codex of prophecy, and I want to share, just invite you to share a little bit about how what the codex of prophecy is and how it informs how we can open to this prophetic channel.
So part of where the Codex Prophetess came from was through the dream time. I was on a Mary Magdalene pilgrimage, and it was the night of my birthday, and we were about to go into a particular cave. And in a lot of the lineages, oftentimes what wants to be created through us comes in dreams. And so I had this dream with a lineage of priestesses in training where we went through a series of cave rituals. And at the end of the dream, in letters, said Codex Prophetess. And so I was like, okay, this dream wants to dream itself into existence. And then I started tuning into a lot of my focus and study for the last 20 years has been in relationship to Ma'atian law, the laws and codes of Ma'at, which are the cosmic truths, cosmic order, cosmic justice that supports cosmic harmony. And a lot of these lineage traditions have codes and understandings of how the cosmic forces or the creation principles in the natural world and in the cosmos work in relationship to crafting reality. And us as humans, learning them and building a relationship with them and shaping with them helps to restore harmony, balance, and revive our evolutionary process. And so this Codex Prophetess is really an emergent process where we're going to look at old codes, such as the Ma'atian law from ancient Egypt, the codes of Ma'at, and get to know them and look at some other ones, and then together build one together that's emergent from our journey over the 7 weeks. So we're feeling into what are the codes that we're noticing are helpful and useful and of offering towards this new moment of humanity's evolutionary process. So I'm actually very excited about it, because I've been following the codes of, and I will always follow the codes of Ma'at specifically, and also like what's coming through us now, and that's emergent now with deep roots from something that has been really helping the rise and fall of humanity for time immemorial, and what's actually relevant in this time of innovation, innovating the eternal.
Love that explanation. Well, I know you also want to guide us in a bit of an experiential process to start to activate our own inner prophetess, and love for you to just take some time now to guide us in that meditative activation and inquiry.
Okay, thank you. So this is going to be very, very, very simple, and very simply, the invitation is to sit up in our bodies. We call what's known we call this the spine in ancient Egypt. It's called the Jed, the DJED. And we sit up in our spine, in our Jed, we resurrect, and we invite everyone to roll your shoulders back. So, and allow the heart to be uplifted. And the rolling of the shoulders back, heart uplifted, sitting up in our Jeds. We're invited to gently close our eyes and keep a slight slither, kind of like you see in the Buddha, a slight slither, so we're fully present still here. So go ahead and gently close the eyes, allow that slight slither to be there. I'm going to do 3 inhales and exhales, and then we're just going to very simply tune in. So inhale up. Exhale, relax more into your throne, your body. Inhale up. Relax even more into your own throne, your body. Inhale up. Exhale, relax. And with our eyes and with a slight sliver, Go ahead and roll your eyeballs back into your head, your crown, your consciousness, into your third eye. And very simply listen, attune, and pay attention. And that's it. And we'll sit in silence for a few moments with the great mystery to listen, notice, and pay attention. In attunement to what you're noticing, now direct your attention to what is noticing you. Once again, in attunement to what you're noticing, now direct your attention to what is noticing you. Concentrate on what is noticing you. Commune with what is noticing you. And go ahead and bring your hands together, rub them back and forth, generate heat and energy. Rest that heat and energy over your eyes. Go ahead and run your fingers through your head, through your hair. Massage the head. Go ahead and shoot back and pull your hair. Stretch it out. Bring your hands back into prayer. And then how we close this is we bring our hands into what's called the sign of Assad, your right over left. And then we sit up and acknowledge ourselves and our path, who we are, where we come from. The simple time we took to commune with the silence. And then we bow to what noticed us. Ankh-Nataru, 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 blessed be, and so it is.
And so it is. That was a deep and beautiful silence and invitation to commune with what notices us. So when you recognize something noticing you, what's the next step then in deepening that connection so that there may be a message or a prophetic channeling that wants to come through that connects with that particular being or force?
So oftentimes there's 3 stages. There's meditation, which is like to calm the mind, center, attune, heart, mind, body, and spirit present. Then concentration, where we concentrate on what is noticing us. And then from this point moving forward is to contemplate what noticed us and get to know it and build a relationship with it. And oftentimes it'll show up in signs, symbols, experiences, conversations as we're walking and moving about in the world, if we're still choosing to contemplate what notices us. So part of it is like walking forward and noticing the signposts along the way. And usually the signposts will have in any form, whether it's a symbol, a conversation, or literally a post, will have a little detail that's information from what noticed us communicating to us. So from this point moving forward, if you choose, please contemplate what noticed you and get to know it and notice how it's noticing you in the world around you and within you.
Mm. And so that begins this deeper relationship or communion of and establishment of connection. And then at what point do you start to ask for or invite messages that might be useful for you or others?
Well, one of the things that we like to do is begin to strengthen the practice of offering first, so that we're giving food and nourishment towards that which we're communing with, such as this practice. So we start by making offerings. And then from the practice of offering, then it's the cleansing and the purification and syncing up the heart, mind, body, and spirit. And then preparing the vessel to be a vehicle. And then once we've cultivated the practices and the steps and stages to be a vehicle, then we start inquiring and asking questions. And we call it the art of receiving instructions. And then the instructions, the asking questions that lead towards an instruction, and oftentimes the instructions start to come through. They're like charges. It becomes what's called a charge or a pronouncement. So there's a few stages that, steps towards that. Mm-hmm.
I love how systematically you approach this. And I also want to ask about, you had said earlier something about the 3 worlds as sort of past and present. You have presence in each. And how do you, in the function of the prophetess, how are you relating to past, present, and future?
Well, something I like to think about is the magnificence of a tree, a tree of life. I like to consider that we are very reflective of a tree of life in our body. We have our trunk, our central channel, and our legs that are like roots that connect into the mycelial network. And then we have arms, branches, that reach up to the cosmos. And in the work of oracles, seers, prophetess, priestesses, there's this communion with deeply going in and descending into the origins of the Holy Mother of the Earth, Pachamama. a lot of times there's a whole lineage traditions around going literally into caves, whether it's literal little cave or also going into the cave inside oneself, to go into, descend into the earth and connect with the origins here, our bloodlines, the land, the wisdom of the land, the Gaia herself. And so it's connecting with the earth, right? Being a conduit for what wants to upload from the descent. So as we descend into the earth, this idea of receiving uploads from the mother, from the cave, from our ancestors, from our origins, ancient origins. Oftentimes we go to mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, and we keep going. There's so much that unlocks in that healing, in that communion, in that restoration. And then the future, like when we stretch our hands, is in ancient Egypt, they reference that when light comes, whether it's solar light, stellar light, or lunar light, from any star system and or what's moving across the sky, being on planet Earth, moving through the cosmos, that as that light comes in, that's information that's coming from the future. Because by the time the light reaches here, it's from the past, from its point of origin, but it's from the future for us. And then that light is information that becomes a download. And so then we receive the downloads from the future, always. And so then in this practice of being a conduit, cleansing the vessel to be a vehicle for creation to place like instruments, and we sit up, we're communing with the deep origins of our where we come from, this Holy Mother Earth, and our bloodlines and our bones and our ancestors, the memory of what happened or what wants healing and restoration, while simultaneously and then we receive uploads from there, while simultaneously receiving information from the future as a download. And then as oracles, seers, prophetesses, priestesses, priests, to become a vehicle for the communication, the communion of them both in the present moment. Because simultaneously, as we're receiving from the future, we're also healing from the past, transforming from the past. So it's cyclical.
Yeah, I love how you create that cycle with the past, present, and future, so that there's an interpenetration. That's really a beautiful way to hold it. Well, Isis, there's so much that we can learn from you, and it's really been a blessing already this time together. And I want to spend some time talking about how people can go deeper in your upcoming course, which is a unique opportunity to learn from you. You've really been steeped in these mysteries for decades now and taught hundreds of others how to access their own inner prophetess and oracle. And we're really blessed that you're bringing this to the Shift Network now. So Isis has agreed to teach this brand new course. It's called The Lineage of the Prophetess. Commune with feminine oracles to receive evolutionary guidance for yourself and others. You can see it at the URL prophetesslineage.com, prophetesslineage.com. It's a 7-week program and is really going to lay systematic foundations for you to live in right relationship, harmonize with the world around you with deeper divine forces, to create that cycle of reciprocity. All of the concepts you've been hearing today become a living practice as you go deeper with Isis. So I'd love for you, Isis, for you to share some of your intentions for what folks will come away with from your course, and then I'll read out the module titles, and you can give a preview of what's coming in each.
My intentions are to offer remembrance into the field of who we are, where we come from, and help to restore and turn on more of these inner faculties through employing our senses to gain more access to the innate wisdom inside of our bloodlines, our water, our bones, of our ancestry, and to come together in council and in community to commune with the more than human, benevolent, loving forces, and to build a relationship with these cosmic forces at play so we can craft together more coherently. And my intentions also are to strengthen and nourish the consciousness of offering. One of the things the Oracle said to me is the consciousness of offering is the antidote to the extractive mind. And to really strengthen and support the consciousness of offering as a way to create and shape more beauty in the world. And I feel so honored to be here, and I feel really grateful to be a part of this council coming together. You know, a lot of it is a call. You know, so many of us feel a call and we're like here to show up, and part of showing up in this lineage and tradition is to turn on and employ our senses and our intuitive faculties, because they're needed right now. You know, we're at a time where it's time to shape a new story and create a new story with like wisdom from our origins, from where we come from, and communion with the future. So my intention is to offer a way for us to do that. This inherently influences our families, our communities, our villages, crafts culture, and influences all sectors of society. So thank you
Amen
so
to
much
that
for this
vision.
opportunity.
Beautiful intentions. Well, let's go through the modules and give at least a little preview of what's coming. So module 1 is called Echoes of the First Voice, Origins of the Prophetess and Reawakening Your Sacred Lineage of Knowing.
So in this first module, we're going to look at the origins, the etymology of the different names, and we're going to look at how this is relevant and related to the mystical bloodlines that run through each and every one of our cultures.
Module 2, Earth as Temple, Global Lineages of the Prophetess and Reclaiming Your Place in the Ancestral Web.
In this one, we're going to dive into the lineage lines that have been carried from generation to generation and across cultures, and get to know different ways that these lineage lines were in communion with the more than human forces to strengthen the bonds and the relations.
Module 3, The Voice of the Neteru, the Egyptian Prophetess and Temple Arts to Strengthen Your Prophetic Vision.
This is a real focus on ancient Egypt specifically, being that that's what I've mostly been in study and communion with. And in this way, we're going to look at how temples that are still living and still alive in ancient Egypt, that were designed to be divine houses for these practices and these bonds and these rituals, are how we can interact with them, relate to them, restore the memory of them, and how restoring this memory also can be a way to feed these temples and feed this remembrance.
Module 4, The Womb Cave Mysteries, Descent, Dream, and Devotion to Awaken the Oracle Within.
The practice of descent into Pachamama, Mother Gaia, the holy Ma, the Mother Earth here, is also very deeply connected to a lot of our ancestral lineages. We have stories of going into caves and listening and paying attention and communing in the darkness. So we're going to get to know these lineages and then go into practice of the descent, the practice of descent, to also commune with the Holy Mother.
Module 5, Prophecy and Service, The seeress serves the community with clear, aligned vision.
Through all of these stages and steps, we will be doing rituals and practices to strengthen this nature. So by the time we get to this module, we start tapping into seership that has deep origin and roots from the past, commune with Ma, Mater, that also can commune with the future that's communicating to us. And so we'll start to get into the practice of that and how to be a vehicle and an instrument for both of these fields to start to play us.
Module 6, The Silencing of the Prophetess, Suppression, Fire, and Remembering Your Unbroken Inner Voice.
Part of this module is to really look into how there was a mass silencing for many different cultures and traditions, and actually look at some of the origin stories or the history of that, her story of it. And then through that, hold the field of lamentation and grief, because a lot of this, the lineages and the practices are lamenting the forgetfulness, lamenting the great forgetting. And through the grief rites and lamentation of the forgetting, it helps to clear and move energy to then restore the memory again.
Module 7, The Living Codex, The Emergence of the Modern Day Prophetess and Embodying Your Prophetic Lineage.
So this is the one where we are going to look at traditions that had codexes around and still have codexes around these oracular seership prophetess rites and tradition. And then we're going to start to build one as a council. I'm very excited about this because this is where we look at what our council is experiencing, noticing, and seeing, and bringing in, crafting into the field through the cultivation of this codex.
Well, what an extraordinary program. And I know this can be a blessing for anyone who chooses to move forward with you because you really are a real deal prophetess. You're so grounded, so humble, and yet also able to bring through such really high wisdom for people. So
Mm.
this is going to be, I think, incredible blessing to learn how Isis has cultivated these skills and taught thousands of other people about them as well. So again, the whole URL, whole program is laid out at the URL prophetesslineage.com. If you choose to move forward, you're going to get the 7 90-minute live sessions with Isis, which is also a great time to ask questions live. You also have recordings of every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There are weekly practices for home. There's a community group to support you and deepen your experience. And there's also a number of extra bonuses that Isis has been very generous in adding. There's a PDF guide called Rites of Attunement, Preparatory Rituals. And it sounds like that Isis goes deeper into some of what you talked about in terms of preparation.
Yes, exactly. So in the rites of attunement, it's a written form, a document of these preparatory rituals, and then I'll pass them orally as well.
So that's one bonus. Then there's a second bonus is a recorded video teaching called A Guided Journey of Remembrance. You want to share more about that?
Yes, one of the things that is really inherent in this lineage tradition is the art of going into trance. And so the guided journey of remembrance is to induce a trance-like state, to open up this threshold liminal location for remembrance from the subconscious to occur and arise.
Very cool. And then there's one final bonus that is, I think, quite a blessing and something I personally am making use of is direct community oracle divination. So this is going to be a video teaching. It's a live community oracle divination reading with Isis. And Isis, you want to share more about what you'll do in that oracular divination reading?
My honor. This oracle divination board was gifted through vision to me, and then through my dear friend Johnny Ray and Tasia was able to materialize this oracle divination board technology. And this board, it's a wooden board with the blueprint of creation on it and different symbols and sigils. And then there's an altar, and then there's dice and tools, and where we will toss the dice and place tools. And in the community sense, what will happen is we'll come together and together discover 3 inquiries that we have, and then we'll ask the inquiries, throw the dice, place the tools, and then I'll do live interpretation.
Very cool. And I can attest that the last time I did a oracular session like this was just mind blowing. I'm going to do another soon after this program. So it's quite a blessing to have Isis enter into this mode for you personally or for collectively. So it's clearly going to be an amazing program. We've kept the investment for it very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start February 19th and run Thursdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. There's some beautiful testimonials on the page about Isis's teaching work from previous students. An amazing instructor who draws you in with extensive knowledge, masterful in her communication, integrity, science, art, wisdom, and ritual. Teaching style is clear, precise, straightforward, yet humble and saturated with depth. So many great testimonials from previous students. So I can assure you, Aaron, very expert hands, and you will receive many blessings from learning from Isis. So again, there's more details on each of the things we've described at prophetesslineage.com, and a reminder that you will get to participate in the live community oracular divinatory reading if you sign up by midnight tonight Pacific time. So Isis, it's always such a joy to be with you. Thank you for this time, and I really love kind of seeing how sincere you are in each step of the process to open yourself in this way to be a vehicle and a voice for deeper messages and utterances. And so, thank you for all you've done to be who you are. Anything that you still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering doing the full course with you?
Mm. Well, first and foremost, I want to say Thank you for this invitation. And with that, as always, my greatest prayer is for whatever comes through to be useful, helpful, practical, beneficial, and of great service to our lives, our homes, our families, our communities, our villages, the cultures we craft, and the society we're building together. And so, with that, I'm really excited to come back together. Something I always think about when we come together in a circle, it's this remembrance that we've been here before. We're just remembering how we did it. So I'm looking really forward to being together again. And with that, thank you so much for your most generous time. And in the spirit of authenticity, just want to say, Anknetaru, 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 blessed be, and so it is.
Blessed be, and so it is. Thank you, Isis. Beautiful hour together. Thank you all for joining. And if you'd like to go further into these profound practices, again, it's at prophetesslineage.com, and you will get the special live community oracle divination reading if you sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you so much.
Thank you.